It's an absolute pleasure to be here in Poznan today in one of the world's truly rising urban stars, which hopefully I'll come on to show in a moment. So let's kick off. We're all familiar with the frenetic pace of urbanization that's happening across the globe. But our sense is that we are at an inflection point where evolution and revolution collide to pull apart everything that's familiar and ordered into a new world that is unfamiliar and far more complex. And that's the world that our cities are now being thrown, that is testing our built environment. It's the world of the fourth urban cycle, in a cycle where we're seeing a reconfiguration of the world's hierarchy as 1.5 million people move to cities somewhere in the world every week. And it's the world of the fourth industrial revolution, with its digital disruptions that we've just heard about, that will continue to test the very fabric of our built environment and real estate market. And it's the world where agility, which we've already heard about, and flexibility are going to be more important to our cities than pure size and scale. And so we're having to reevaluate what city success means, what it means for businesses and what it means for the real estate industry. And so success for our cities is now being judged on a diversity of indicators, from livability, resilience, brand, diversity. And the buzzword at the center of this chart is about future-proofing, ensuring that the city has the ingredients to maintain a momentum, sustainable momentum, over the longer term. And so that's really testing the business perceptions of city success. And for corporates and for entrepreneurs, factors such as talent and livability and well-being, employee well-being, are part of the conversation as they make these location choices. And it's also redefining the relationship between businesses and with cities, the city authorities. And at the same time, more and more cities are appearing on the international radar, jostling for position for this footloose capital, for this footloose talent, for the footloose businesses. And so in this competitive landscape, how do Polish cities, how do they maintain their visibility? How do they maintain their influence in a world that has agile, rising urban stars like Ho Chi Minh City, like Shenzhen in China, or these enormous megacities like Shanghai or like Sao Paulo that have economic size that is larger than the whole of the Polish economy? Or the tech-savvy cities like Silicon Valley or Seattle that are really pushing the new agenda? And the answer to that really comes from understanding where Poland's cities sit in this global urban network, because it no longer makes sense to understand city dynamics and to expect cities to be in competition with every other city. Different groups of cities have similar characteristics and advantages with a similar peer group of cities, often outside of their national framework. And so we've identified 12 categories of 12 city clusters. And these cities have parallel sets of priorities in terms of the business ecosystems that they're looking to nurture, in terms of the talent they're looking to attract, in terms of the specializations they're looking to develop, and also in terms of the types of real estate that they need to offer. And so they range from, as you can see here, the established world cities, the big seven as we call them, which are the world's most competitive and most globalized economies with the deepest concentrations of capital and companies and talent, of the likes of New York and of London, of Tokyo, for example. Then we have, as you go out of this pie, we have the global contenders that have the agility, that have the aspiration, that have the assets to potentially join the elite Big Seven. And here I'm thinking of Los Angeles, Amsterdam, another interesting example, which is leveraging its success as part of the Holland metropole. And then on your left, you have what we call our New World cities. These are mid-sized cities that have global reach through their ability to specialize, through their technological prowess, through their quality of life, and for their infrastructure platform. And amongst those, we've got the innovators that are gaining prominence as tech hotspots, that are hubs of new startups, and I'm thinking sort of Austin, Texas, or Stockholm, for example. Then we have the lifestyle cities that are leaders in not only quality of life, but in terms of urban government. And again, some of the best examples you wouldn't be surprised to hear would be like Melbourne or Vancouver. Then we have the influencers. We could have the financial influencers like Frankfurt, or cities that have strong representation of NGOs like Vienna, for example. And then on the right-hand side, we have the emerging world cities. And I won't go through those in detail, but just to flag the entrepreneurial enterprise cities, the likes of Shenzhen and Hyderabad, that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of developing new city models. Now, this framework is in a continual sense of state of flux, and perhaps no other group of cities epitomize the journey that cities can make from one category to another than Polish cities, which have been transitioning, as you're all very familiar, gradually from the right to the left of this pie. And as what we call, perhaps inelegantly, hybrids, they're acquiring the characteristics of types of new world cities. So they're competing in high-value markets and building their livability and infrastructure platforms. But in other regards, they also have the appeal of some emerging world cities, particularly the enterpriser economies, cities that are unencumbered by their historic legacy. And so, as Polish cities enter the next phase in their economic journey, will they continue to morph into a style of new world city? An innovator like Berlin, which is attracting the digital nomads from across the globe, or like Copenhagen, a city that has made lifestyle a sexy proposition, or Barcelona as a cultural influencer that has gone through an incredible journey over the last 25 years. But the Polish cities could, in fact, develop their own route to success and maybe morph more into a style of enterpriser city, a new model of success, nurturing the next generation of global businesses, of new products, in an environment that is buzzing with new ideas. And just a word of Warsaw, for example. Question, does it have the capacity or the appetite to become a global contender city, sitting alongside Amsterdam, Madrid, Los Angeles, for example, as it builds a truly regional and, in fact, global function? And as hybrid cities, Polish cities have seen high levels of foreign investment in recent years. And this slide I'm showing what we call cross-border real estate investment intensity index. And real estate investment as a proportion of the size of their economy, the Polish cities are world beaters. So we have Kraków, Wrocław, Katowice, Poznan, and Warsaw, all featuring in the global top 30, punching well above their weight as investment destinations. And Polish cities have also made great strides in terms of real estate transparency. And since 2004, JLL have been tracking transparency and have seen Poland transform from a semi-transparent market into being on the cusp of what we call highly transparent, sitting alongside the leading Asian and Nordic cities, for example. But a slight note of caution here. JLL are just about to launch our latest transparency index, which will be out at the end of this month. And it suggests that the Polish cities are treading water when it comes to real estate transparency. And so their rankings are starting to fall very slightly, with other cities overtaking Warsaw and the other Polish cities on the back of a very dynamic PropTech, open data initiatives, and sustainability initiatives. So Polish cities come from a real position of strength, but the mixed picture, perhaps I'm suggesting in terms of real estate transparency, in terms of further improvement, does highlight the need for all cities to be to guard against complacency. Global competition is hotting up, and we've identified 10 imperatives of a successful city that provide a checklist for all cities as they go on their economic journey. And many of these are familiar to you, well recognized, such as the nurturing innovation, attracting talent, building a robust infrastructure. But it's the subtleties that can make the difference between success and failure of these cities. And I just want to offer, before we move to the panel, a perspective, a very helicopter perspective, of those 10 elements. Which do we perceive as we look at the relative city competitiveness across the globe that are perhaps that resonate most with the journey that Polish cities are on? Innovation, of course. We are also already seeing that the Polish cities are attracting high-value activities from major multinational firms. That's clearly evident. The next stage, though, will be very much about how Polish cities can develop their innovative domestic ecosystems that allows entrepreneurs and highly skilled workers to create the next generation of world-beating indigenous firms. Secondly, it's about going global. Again, Poland has been incredibly successful in attracting overseas investments. But again, the next stage might be much more about the export of ideas and of innovation, in the same way as some of the Chinese cities like Shenzhen or Hangzhou, the home of Alibaba, are starting to export their influence, export their ideas into new markets. And thirdly is governance, urban governance. And there I'm thinking it in the very broadest of terms. It's about inward investment agencies, city authorities, the real estate sector, all working hard, which is clearly doing, to create Poland as one of Europe's, and in fact one of the world's most attractive investment destinations. But again, the competition is hotting up. There are more and more cities on the international radar for footloose capital, talent, and corporations. And of course, talent. I mean, Poland has shifted its migration balance, which combined with the weight of domestic graduates means that it has a strong talent pool, which we're all very familiar with. But increasingly, issues will be about livability, about well-being, about diversity, and about branding that will attract the next generation of digital nomads and high-value talent. And so finally, of course, as real estate advisors, we shouldn't forget the role that real estate can play as a driver of city competitiveness, not just a consequence of it. But while real estate is not necessarily the primary driver of corporate location decision-making, a lack of choice of high-quality, cost-competitive space will deter investors. But more importantly, real estate can redefine a city. At a large scale, major urban transformational projects can create new neighborhoods of mixed-use development that can encourage entrepreneurship, that can encourage collaboration, that can change a place's meaning and have knock-on effects on the surroundings. And real estate can also provide a key role in that future-proofing credentials through transparency, through sustainability, through technology, as buildings become smarter and more environmentally sustainable. So, Polish cities have made incredible strides over the past 2 decades, combining rapid growth, high levels of inward investment, and increasing integration with the global business networks. But I'll leave the question open. We are very much, like all cities, facing major structural changes. So like all cities, we're at a crossroads here as the Polish cities redefine their role in this new world of cities. So thank you for listening to a short overview of our perspective on this Poland in the new world of cities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeremy Kelly, Director of Global Research, JLL. Please take one of those beautiful white chairs in the middle as we are approaching the panel discussion. Thank you for the presentation with the number of the very interesting stories from the journalist perspective, but with the number of stories that show how many challenges are ahead of the Polish business service sector. As I mentioned, we are moving to the panel discussion. Jeremy Kelly is going to be one of the panelists. Let me introduce the other panelists to take the stage. Iwona Dudzińska, Managing Director, Citigroup, Head of Anti-Money Laundering Hub for EMEA region. Arkadiusz Rudzki, Managing Director, President of the Management Board, Skanska Property Poland. Alok Sethi, Executive Vice President, Technology and Operations, Franklin Templeton Investments. And the moderator, Kartik Hanumatarao, Partner, Global Sourcing, Everest Group. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is my 10th trip to Poland. And when I told my 10-year-old daughter that I'm visiting Poland again, she says, look, this is your annual pilgrimage that you're going on. It's a location that I've been here many times and really incredible to see the success, both in terms of growth and evolution. My previous 2 speakers, both Jenny and Jeremy, have set some really good context for this panel discussion. This panel discussion, the topic is about rethinking city competitiveness. But before we talk about cities and, as Jeremy talked about different classifications of cities, I'd like to start off with this theme of disruption, which Jenny, you touched upon, and Jeremy, you touched upon as well. Many of us here belong to global companies that have operated and still continue to operate a global delivery model across multiple locations. Right? So if you take a step back and say, what is really changing location strategy? Right? It goes back to the fundamental drivers of global services themselves. Right? So what is really changing? I'm going to ask Alok, because maybe Alok, you can talk a little bit about your role and really touch upon what do you see are the big value drivers that are going to impact global sourcing? And therefore, what does it mean for location strategy?
Thanks, Karthik. So I work for Franklin Templeton Investments, and I oversee the global technology and operations. And I have been involved with setting up our global sourcing centers, both in Hyderabad and Poznan. So I've had that unique benefit of working on both over the last 10, 15 years, and also overseeing them. So, Karthik, good question in terms of the fact that what is really changing, and I would say a lot is changing. And in my view, what we will see of our centers going forward, and I mean not in 20 years, but in 5 to 10 years, will be very different from what they are today. I think when you think of all the disruptors that have been spoken about, and they are automation, blockchain, artificial intelligence, digitization, and data analytics, all of this is going to change the world of operations and technology. Operations probably will no more be the transaction processing or the reconciliations that we talk about, and technology will probably not be so much about application development, but more about APIs and more about herding different vendors and different application providers. So I see the world changing dramatically. And with that, I think one of the slides, someone did mention the fact that the numbers of people will reduce in these centers. The kind of work they do will change quite significantly. People will need to retrain. We will need to bring in different kinds of people. I see roles changing significantly. The roles of pure generalist people managers are going to reduce and diminish in the times to come. So all of this would mean that the world changes, the competitiveness of cities changes, and it really is up to the cities then how they manage themselves and how they become truly attractive.
Thanks, Alok. Let me build on that and pass this on to you, Ono, now. In your role at a city in Poland, if you were to build on some of the disruptors that Alok touched upon, how are you seeing this impact Poland? And what does that mean in terms of your outlook and how you're running and evolving Poland as a delivery location?
I am working for City for quite a long time. And actually, thank you for that question. Over that time, the landscape that City has created in Poland for city business has dramatically changed, of course, into the right direction. Today, we may say, as compared to the 15 years ago, the kind of the service and the complexity of the service that we do provide is different. And this is not very specific to City. It is obvious for any other center or any other business unit that is present at that conference and works in the sector. So basically, when people were taking a decision 15 years ago, or even longer, some of the organizations, of course they were taking those decisions based on the labor arbitrage, and they wanted to move a big number of jobs to a location which is attractive. Of course, one of the key reasons were availability of talent, but costs were equally important. And sometimes that was really the decision maker for companies. Over the time, Poland has emerged, and for example, our business in City as well, to the extent that we are, first of all, we need to be clear about this, we are not seeing Poland as a low-cost location any longer, because we are actually middle cost, and when we see some of the reports for the last years, on some of the positions, we are not that different from Western Europe. So basically, because even of that fact, the expectation from Poland has increased. Fortunately enough, because we are quite long in the sector, we've been able to use the potential or grow the potential of people that have already a very good education because they are well educated. The educational system in Poland has been traditionally very good. And on top of that, they got this international touch in terms of the diversity, in terms of the culture, and of course, professional experience. So today, they are absolutely better prepared to go for this new changing world and the new changing environment. We in City are cooperating very close. We cannot say that we today already have a lot of R&D business. And I don't think that R&D is the key, we can say overall, as we sit here, that R&D is really very much present. There is a lot of space for R&D, and we are slowly entering into the sector, cooperating with one of those, or with some of those cities that have been mentioned earlier, very closely. And we can notice that if we talk about global solutions, global innovation, there is more and more of the global innovation that is initiated, that is produced, or the thought starts here in Poland and implemented to this global model. I think we cannot lose that opportunity and chance and stop here. We have to go forward in order to be able to provide more complex service.
Ivona, just building on this theme of innovation, I'm going to move on to Arek. So from a real estate perspective, how do you see disruption and innovation impacting? Because you're, as Jeremy mentioned, a very important enabler of this evolution. So how do you see this impacting, from a real estate perspective?
Of course, it has a huge impact also of the way how we do, how we act, how we plan our projects, how we cooperate with the cities, how we are putting our footprint on development of the cities. I will add one remark on this, because our strategy, Skanska strategy, is to build future-proof offices. So we are quite aligned with JLL in this looking forward in terms of future-proofing projects. So on us is much bigger responsibility to also to create for our clients, our partners, the environment where the employees could be attracted, could work, live, have fun. Great example of such a project is here in Poznań, where we are developing a Nowy Rynek project of 100,000 square meters, which is going to be delivered within the next few years. So we need to respond for the requirements of the new generation, how they want to work, how they want to live. And we also introduced to our business model co-working business. Because this is something what also is changing the way how the companies works nowadays, and we're developing together with the Business Link, local Polish co-working chain, the infrastructure in all of our projects in Poland to also support such organizations like City or Franklin Templeton to also increase the attractiveness of our products, which are not only the shelf products anymore.
Interesting. So, Jeremy, a different question for you. You talked about, what's changing and what's the driver of, what does future-proofing cities look like? If you'd done the same assessment, let's say 3 or 5 years back, right, how would this whole classification of cities look different? I mean, would it look different? Or what would be different about the situation 3, 5 years back than what you've done currently?
I think that the biggest difference would have been certainly the emergence of what we're calling these new world cities. They're the real signature piece, I think, of this current wave of urbanization, where small to mid-sized cities can get global reach and can be an important part of the global urban network through their specialization, and we can see that here in Poznań. And it does actually highlight that you don't have to be a large city like London or New York to capture global business activity. We've got cities like Tallinn in Estonia, which I often quote as being a great example of a city that does have global reach, global attention, global specialization. And what is it, a city of 200, 300,000? I'm not quite remember. But certainly I think it's questioning the dominance of the
the major urban hubs, which continue to be attract and be the natural choice of many companies, but we are starting to see a much broader dilution of activity into many mid-sized cities.
Interesting. So, Alok, you touched upon, I think all of you touched upon a theme that's very close to my heart, which is really around evolution. So Wojtek, you talked about the growth, the significant growth that the industry in Poland has been experiencing. But equally, if not more important, it's about the evolution. And going forward, at least I personally believe, based on our experience globally and what we see in more larger countries like India and the Philippines, for example, the future may not be about just growth in addition of jobs, but more evolution. Now, as you think about that evolution, there are obviously significant implications from a talent model perspective. So, Alok, let me hand this back to you. So, from a Poland standpoint, or for that matter, both from a global standpoint, how do you see the future of talent models?
Actually, it's the same theme that we were talking about already, Karthik, that the key in my mind now is that which cities are going to be the true magnets that attract the right talent. Because how successful we are going to be as companies and centers is going to be a function of the quality of talent, the diversity of talent that we are able to attract. And that really is a function of how friendly the city is, what's the kind of real estate that exists there, what's the quality of schooling, what's the quality of the internet infrastructure, how livable are these cities, and are they really friendly to diverse populations? I think that's going to be the crux now, because the whole kind of talent that you will require is going to continue to change. So no one city can create that talent. The city needs to attract the talent from all over. And you see that. I mean, the success of Silicon Valley is all about the fact that it is able to attract talent from around the world. The success of other cities is going to be the same. And I would like to believe that is how a city like Poznań will really succeed in the years to come, by attracting more and more of this talent.
It's a great point, Alok. And Ivona, you talked about how you've seen city in Poland evolve more as a global location. So what have you done to enable that? And what's been your experience, to Alok's point, about attracting talent into Poland from other locations?
So first of all, there are several questions that we need to ask ourselves. And actually, I think that what we are doing in City and many other companies are doing is really focusing on the environment. And this is a composition of many things. So first of all, we have a good talent pool that we know. We have a lot of universities. Luckily, we also in Poland are not based in one location. So for example, we are happy because we are over 38 million people. We have around 400,000 graduates that part of them are, or majority, Polish, but also more and more coming from other countries, from the neighbor countries. So basically, we have that talent pool. But it has been quite helpful so far, but we need to make some more stuff. So for example, the contribution of the international students and people who are coming from different countries has increased into the businesses, into our sector in City. In City, we have around 15% of people who are international staff. And of course, majority of those people are people who are coming from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. But there is more and more people who come from Ireland, Spain, Western Europe. So what we try to do, we are trying to be very open and diverse in all aspects. So for example, we are running initiative that help us to be a better place to work for people. And it is company by company. All companies are engaged in similar activities, but because we are all engaged in the similar activities, we are helping to show city, let's say, for example, Warsaw, but this is not only Warsaw, other cities as well. We are helping to show this city as a good place to be. How can we make it quicker and support it better? How can we take people from Western Europe and attract them? Do we talk enough and do we present Poland as a good place to be? Because typically when people come and stay and start their career here, they really love Poland and they want to stay. But if you are a student and you live and work in Madrid, for example, and you are proposed a job in Poland, the nominal salary of Poland is not very attractive. So what can we do to show to people that in fact the value of that money or that salary is absolutely fine and probably much better than in other countries abroad. So I think that there is a lot of things to do that we individually in the companies improve the diversity by having more international and multicultural talent from other countries. And by doing that, we automatically will be a magnet and will be a better city for others. And obviously, it would be good to simplify some of the procedures. Like, we don't like the fact that if we want to import our talent from India, we need to wait months and months to get all approvals. It is not helpful, though we are working and making some progress with the authorities to change that.
Eric, do you want to comment on this from a real estate perspective? We started the panel about 20 minutes later than scheduled. I'm assuming these bells are not about us wanting to finish the panel, assuming these are something else. Okay, fine, okay.
Okay, so I'll be short, Indian. I agree, but I think the general comment from my side would be that it's on us, on all polls, being frank, that we need to also attract other people who are visiting us, being more open and being more helpful also to attract the Poland as a location, not only in the cities, because it starts from the government, then this goes with the local authorities, and this needs all to be aligned, but at the end it's about the people. How we are approaching others and how open we are as a society to, to be open for the new culture, new experience, and how we can mix the society in Poland. And we will only support as a real estate guys.
Got it. So I'll just keep it to two final questions since the bell has already been rung twice. First question, we've all been talking about this thing about competitiveness, right? So competitiveness inherently means we are comparing locations and saying, okay, one location versus the other. But if you think about a global delivery model, it's not about just one location versus the other, but one location and another, right? In some cases, it is two locations, like in the case of, I'm just talking of offshore, nearshore, Franklin. In the city, you've got, I think, 15, right? So as you think about this, how much is it about competitiveness versus complementary and collaborative roles across multiple locations? Alok, you want to touch upon that?
Sure, Karthik. And I would say that for us, when we compare, we have two locations. We have Poznan and we have Hyderabad. And I don't see these two competing with one another. They pretty much coexist. One is that you just need a globally distributed model, so you needed to have two locations, one in Asia, one in Europe. Being in Europe is phenomenal because of the fact that you are so close to the EU, you're a part of the EU. There are things that you can do in Poznan which are so much different from what you can do in Hyderabad. For instance, all the language skills that exist in this city, you would not be able to find those language skills in Hyderabad. There are certain nature of activities that just inherently can be done a lot better here than can be done in another location. Yes, India is a country of 1.3 billion people. This is a country, as you mentioned, of 38 million people. So that difference of scale exists over there. The fact that one place is less expensive than the other, as you mentioned, Ivona, again, one is medium cost, one is relatively lower cost. So you make certain decisions based on that basis. But we all coexist together. Both the locations are growing. Both the locations are phenomenal for us.
Okay. So one question, and I'll pose this to all of you. If there is one thing, and I'd like you to keep it to one because of the time constraint, that you feel Polish cities need to do to sustain and evolve on this future of disruption, innovation, what would that be? Jeremy, let me start with you.
I would say how Polish cities can increasingly nurture homegrown innovation and activity.
Okay, Ivona?
I would say maybe diversity and cities being friendly to people who come, to investors and to international employees that would like to work here. Safe, friendly, open.
I would go into promotion of e-mobility, which is the huge trend worldwide right now. And I think we have a big chance right now to also change our way of commuting, how we can be better and be role model maybe in Europe as well.
And I'm not really qualified to speak about Poland, that how would a city in Poland be more innovative. So I would, kind of agree with everything that Ivona said. Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, I was planning to have some time for the audience to ask questions. Do we have time for one audience question? Okay. So on that note, thanks for your time. And I think clearly there is a lot of future opportunity, both in terms of growth, evolution. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves. And one last comment is, as we talk about what Polish cities need to do, if you break that down, it means different things for different stakeholders, right? It means different things for ABSL, it means different things for all the companies, it means different things for real estate providers, enablers, and it's really important that everybody works together to achieve the next level of growth and evolution. So thanks once again for your time, and look forward to a very fruitful conference today and tomorrow.